Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The Trump administration is trying to put Harvard University, the nation's oldest college, out of business. Today, we learned the White House is set to pull all the remaining federal funding that flows through the school. That's about $100 million, according to estimates. That is in addition to the billions of dollars in research funding, including extremely crucial biomedical research, the administration has already frozen at the university. And of course, last week, the White House halted Harvard's ability to enroll international students, which the New York Times reports could impact about 25% of the student body. Here's the thing. People all over the world desperately want to come to the U.S. to study because this country has for decades now offered the gold standard in terms of higher education globally. It's one area of just genuine American exceptionalism. And so international students are a huge boon to American universities and to the American students at those universities and all the economic activity around it. One study showed that about 1 million international students at American colleges and universities contributed more than $43 billion to the U.S. economy during the 2023 and 2024 academic year. You know all those complaints you hear from Donald Trump and lots of people about our trade deficit with China, right? We buy everything from us, they buy nothing from us. We buy everything from them, they buy nothing from us. Well, one place that we have an enormous trade surplus with the rest of the world is in higher ed. But no one in the Trump administration actually cares about that or any of this. This is all just punishment against the university after it rejected the White House's demand to install third-party auditors, kind of ideological, like party apparatchik minders, to, quote, audit those programs and departments that most fuel anti-Semitic harassment or reflect ideological capture. Think about that phrase. Now, to be clear, anti-Semitism is a real and pernicious problem in America. But by now, it is painfully obvious that it is just a convenient rhetorical weapon for Trump and his allies to gain full control of universities. I mean, think about that phrase, ideological capture. That can mean anything. We want to control what your ideology is. They want to rewrite the school's curriculum in a way that is favorable and deferential to Trump and his worldview. Donald Trump wants the most powerful and legendary institution in higher education in this country, arguably in the world, to bend the knee to his whims and become a kind of controlled asset of MAGA. That is the goal here. And yes, let's be clear, it's pretty hard to root for an elite institution like Harvard, right? With a $53 billion endowment. But this attack on the university isn't really about Harvard at all, qua Harvard, and it isn't happening in a vacuum. It is the latest escalation in the administration's ongoing day-by-day battle, and this is going to sound hyperbolic, but I really believe it, to destroy all independent sources of knowledge and fact-finding in our free and open society. As the writer Adam Serwer put it in his latest piece to The Atlantic, by destroying knowledge, Trumpists seek to make the country more amenable to their political domination and to prevent meaningful democratic checks on their behavior. Their victory, though, would do much more than that. It would annihilate some of the most effective systems for aggregating, accumulating, and applying human knowledge that have ever existed. Without those systems, America could find itself plunged into a new dark age. To that end, we are seeing the administration run this playbook towards, again, any independent source of authority. The White House has already pulled $400 million in federal grants for Columbia University, for example. It might try to claw back even more money this week after announcing trumped-up charges of civil rights violations against the school stemming from campus protests about Israel's war on Gaza. In a new piece for The New Yorker, Jelani Cobb, the dean of Columbia's journalism school, quotes one expert who taught at both Columbia and Harvard as saying, quote, "I've studied McCarthyism's impact on higher education for 50 years. What's happening now is worse." Cobb adds, quote, "The biggest mistake that some universities have made in responding to the White House has been to presume it is operating in good faith. It is not." But it's not just attacks on higher education. Everywhere you look, Trump and his administration is targeting independent sources of authority that could challenge Trump's actions, that could lead to a pluralistic society with contested views, right? I mean, in addition to day by day eviscerating the U.S.'s best in the world biomedical research, the administration is also undermining existing hard-won knowledge about public health. Today, without citing new evidence or studies, which is key. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. apparently overrode his own vaccine advisory committee of experts, right? And announced the government would no longer recommend annual COVID boosters for pregnant women and healthy children.
I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today.
That's just not true. There is quite a bit of evidence, including evidence published by the FDA last year. But they aren't finished with their attacks on public health. In a podcast appearance released today, RFK Jr. threatened to block government scientists from publishing their research in top medical journals like The Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine. I mean, again, think about this sort of in context holistically. In addition to the moves against public health and schools and higher education, we're also seeing this escalation day by day of Trump's attacks on us, news media. Probably best exemplified by the president's $20 billion lawsuit against CBS News over an interview 60 Minutes held with then-candidate Kamala Harris. First Amendment experts call the lawsuit meritless, but Paramount, which owns CBS, is already in settlement negotiations. In response, President and CEO of CBS News, Wendy McMahon, resigned, as did the executive producer of 60 Minutes, Bill Owens. Earlier this month, journalist Scott Pelley, who has been at 60 Minutes for more than 2 decades, delivered this warning at a recent commencement address for graduating students at Wake Forest University in North Carolina.
Why attack universities? Why attack journalism? Because ignorance works for power. First, make the truth seekers live in fear. Sue the journalists and their companies for nothing. Then send masked agents to abduct a college student who wrote an editorial in her college paper defending Palestinian rights, and send her to a prison in Louisiana charged with nothing. Then move to destroy the law firms that stand up for the rights of others. With that done, power can rewrite history.
As you can see there, Pelley, to his great credit, is not cowed. And it's true that many aren't. Not every outlet is capitulating to Trump. In fact, today, National Public Radio announced it is suing Trump over his attempts to essentially annihilate the organization, gut funding for the independent outlet through an executive order. And we're seeing this type of resistance everywhere, and sometimes in sort of unexpected areas. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, I think he's a pretty conservative guy, as far as I can know. He's a guy who was initially elevated to the job of Federal Reserve Chair by a guy named Donald Trump in his first term, is fighting the president's pressure campaign to remove him from his position, calling on the next generation to preserve our democratic institutions, again, in another weekend commencement speech at Princeton University. Here's the single most important thing for everyone to understand about this ongoing existential battle to preserve our American birthright of a free and open society. All these institutions and the people that power them and the vast sources of independent knowledge production and authority contained within them that form what is the kind of civil society of America, altogether are more powerful than this one petty addled man. And Donald Trump knows it, and that's why he wants to end them. And the real silver lining here, and there is one, is that Trump's attacks are so reckless and so baseless and transparent, they have left our independent institutions with no choice but to fight back. Good. We need them.